Last year, Simon Wardley announced the idea to set up a Wardley Mapping Foundation. Now, part of the backstory here is that he gifted his research and ideas to the world over a decade ago, and he wants society to benefit from them for the decades to come. And so we decided to run a little experiment to test, one, how much money people would be willing to donate, and two, if people would be willing to volunteer their time. For number one, I ran a funding campaign, picking a target out of thin air, and we raised 2.5K with practically no marketing. While not quite enough for me to press the go button, it showed there was interest. So I returned the money and focused on the second test. I was really impressed with the turnout of volunteers. The first thing we did is explore the question that everyone asks. What would a foundation actually do? Now there are 6 answers to that, and I'll get to them in a sec. But remember the longevity of mapping. Now I want you to think about why. Why are people attracted to mapping in the first place? What brought you here? At its most basic, people want to understand the patterns of competition so that they can produce better outcomes. And that's why they need the body of knowledge that Simon's created. To secure the future of mapping, then, we need to help Simon carry the load. So the Foundation's purpose starts with curating the knowledge, and that's things like Simon's book. To feed into that, we want to encourage research, ideally with grants if we get enough funding. Now, the knowledge is only useful if others learn from it, and so we plan to support open training materials and education, as well as making more events like the various map camps possible. To make mapping more accessible, we need to create open standards and support the tooling market. And finally, the community is fundamental to all of this. We want to help it grow across the world. We're at the point where we know the direction to head in, and now we just need to act. If we get enough financial backing, I'll set up the Wardley Mapping Foundation as a non-profit based here in the UK. We'll use organized services operating model as a starting point, and that means the Foundation's activities will all be delivered as services with clear user needs. This draft service network shows some of the services that we're currently setting up, and some of the ones that we're thinking about. It's almost certainly incomplete, and yes, this is a graph, not a map. At least, not yet. The map that I showed you earlier, well, that's what I'm calling the knowledge service. Now, we've had some initial discussions with Simon about it, but we haven't started it yet. Now, that's because we're focusing on the fundamentals first. Fundamentals like Discord to help connect people in the community. And thanks to Christoph Daniel for setting this one up. And fundamentals like GitHub. And thanks to Julius Gamagni for setting this one up. We also have a better sense of purpose, direction, and organization, thanks to people like Anne Bergen and Adrian Cockcroft. And there were many, many more of you who helped explore user needs earlier in the year to help establish this direction. So Vicky, Holga, Tim, Mark, Manish, and everyone else who joined in. Thanks to all of you too. We've had a few really interesting calls about technical standards with a view to promoting growth in the market and data exchange between the mapping tools. There is a lot of stuff that we want to do, but we can't do it alone, and that's where you come in. The Foundation needs volunteers and money to make it all happen. It's still very much a work in progress, and it moves slow because everyone's doing it in their spare time, but it is moving. It'll go faster still with your help, so reach out if you want to get involved. If you think this is a worthwhile cause, donate. If we hit 10K by December 2022, I'll press the go button. That'll be enough to cover the basic setup and running costs, and we can grow from there. The more people I speak to, the more I realize that we're onto something here. What do you think? Will you help us start the Wardley Mapping Foundation?